Think people are starting to trickle in here. Galen, say the word whenever we need to hit it. Thank you, Heather. All right. Welcome to the Home Assistant for Beginners talk today. Excited to talk about this, something that several people at Fulcrum have been working on for a couple of years in their own homes. And this is kind of a follow-on to a presentation that we had last year that was chasing or more of a deep dive on ESP Home and how you can utilize that in a number of different home automation platforms. But today we're going to go over Home Assistant. That's the one that I'm most familiar with. We're going to talk about the basic architecture and options on and how you can get it up and going and what that looks like, what all the different components are to Home Assistant. Go over some of the use cases that got me started utilizing the platform, and then look at how you maintain it, what are some best practices around it, and then how to go ahead and get started on your own afterwards. So a little bit about me. I'm the CIO for Fulcrum. I've been here 5 years and change now. I've got four teenage boys, 16 to 21 now. And then we have a lot of animals as well. Home automation is something that for me, um, I ended up utilizing in a number of ways, and we'll go over some the use cases a little bit later. But it's something that just fit into our family. We've got a couple of us who are a little bit nerdy, like doing geeky stuff, like doing automation in general, and this was a good way to tie it together. So Home Assistant itself, you're probably familiar with Alexa and Google. They have home automation platforms in which you can do a bunch of integration work. Oftentimes that's just around making things happen. There's not very much visualization to it because they're voice systems. But what drove me over to Home Assistant was the ability to have kind of the long-term view on it, dashboards, a number of different things there. So what is it exactly? It's open source. It's written primarily in Python, although there's a bunch of different ways you can integrate with it. Um, it is something that I wanted so that I could have much better, much more granular control over what my devices were doing, and I could observe them a lot more. It wasn't a black box of all the data is just going to Google or to Amazon or something like that. Being able to run it locally was a big deal for me. I don't want to be dependent upon, a cloud service or something like that. It uses some modular integrations, and there's a number of different ways you can integrate, and we can go over some of those in a bit. And then its support in and of itself is an automation engine, but can also tie to a bunch of other automation engines and work with anything basically that has an API. So I liked it from a flexibility perspective. I think this is one of the giant benefits of it. Oftentimes, whenever you get a new piece of gear, new piece of technology, and they want to use their app on it, you'll end up with on your phone or tablet or something like that, managing six, seven different applications in order to be able to control a smart plug or control a light or something like that. And so I found myself in those shoes whenever, I had let's say a Casa plug, smart plug that would turn on and off, and a scheduling thing through that app. And then my lights were integrated with Alexa. So I could do something there. My cameras wouldn't integrate with anything. They had to have their own app. So you found yourself kind of this mishmash of uh, different types of things that you want to integrate together. And one of the big benefits is being able to have that single pane of glass, that flexibility to pull it all together in one place. Do it locally. A lot of ability to go and integrate with third-party, no-name devices that somebody else may have written firmware for, or you got secondhand from somebody because it's old or something like that. You can still repurpose and utilize some of those things as well. Um, Being able to do it all locally, I think, is a big deal. You control your data that way. You can watch what's going out in or into your environment. And being able to install it on just about anything that you want is a nice bonus as well. So native support for all the major protocols out there that matter, and Matter itself, Matter and Threads are the new standards for non-cloud based communication across different types of devices. But basically anything that has an API, it's IP based, supports databases, MQTT brokers, all that stuff you can tie into a single place and be able to have interesting automations and scripts that occur whenever you want to take an input from one device and maybe take action in another area. So all right. Installation. Installation's fairly straightforward. There's a bunch of different options for you on this. Um, as far as I went, my journey with this started because I found this on my NAS device, and they had some pre-packaged packages that we could install on there, and I just wanted to see what would work with it. And so I ended up running it on the NAS itself for several years, and then ended up finally running into some constraints around the integration to physical hardware that I wanted to plug into it. And so I ended up pivoting over and installing it on a Raspberry Pi. I highly recommend that. That's kind of the easy button here in a lot of ways. It's, like I said, Linux under the covers, but you can run it on Mac, Windows. There's a bunch of different device support out there that you can do it with. Raspberry Pi allows you to plug in, local sensors if you want to do it, or ESP home devices, whatever the case may be on that, but gives you a lot more flexibility, I feel like. One of the lessons learned for me, at least, whenever I was going through this process, the SD card, the normal way that you do this, you flash the Home Assistant operating system onto an SD card, basically plug it in and go. If you don't have the proper type of SD card that supports a ton of writes, that will end up failing over time. And so my evolution, like I said, I've rebuilt this a couple times. And at this point, I ended up just going and getting an external Samsung SSD, plugging that in there. I got a ton more space. It didn't care about the read writes or anything like that, and gives me a lot more flexibility on being able to do more integrations and save data there. So once you get it up, the install up and going, it's going to take you to, you go to this Home Assistant.local 8123 port, and it's going to take you through a wizard. And the wizard, in and of itself, you're going to go in and create a user. You'll define a home or location. It's going to have a map where you can kind of zoom in on that. Um, it gives asks about some options to go and share your data back with the community. If you want to do that, I typically turn it off. And then the last piece of it, it will automatically give you a head start and basically scan the network looking for any compatible devices. So then it'll say, oh yeah, I detected a Casa smart plug here. I need to go ahead and prompt you for your credentials on that or whatever the integration may look like as far as that goes. Um, Example integrations, it's literally all over the map. Anything with an IP address. Oftentimes people do, interesting home and away scenarios that we can talk about a little bit later there, but involving like lights or your air conditioning, heating, mini splits, whatever the case may be on that. Um, there's a lot more than what's on this list right here, and there's a couple different places in which you integrate with the platform. One is out of the box here. That this is what this shows. And then two, they have basically Docker containers that work side by side as well. And so you can pull up your favorite Grafana, a database or something like that, some sort of integration there that you'll basically put credentials in and be able to store data or pull data in. There's several different out there that are out of the box. However, they don't run inside the actual thing, and they run inside the Docker platform. And then the last one is at the Home Assistant Community Store, and I've got a link for that in the shared links or whatever you can take a peek at. And that has tons and tons of integrations, third party. They may not be officially supported by Home Assistant. It may be a third party or a company, something like that. But typically, if you can't find it in the base product, you will be able to go find it over there. Um, Pretty straightforward. The other thing that is interesting, and I went down this path whenever I initially got started with Home Assistant, was integrating it with your existing smart home platforms like Alexa or the Google Assistant. Um, there are some benefits in which you can go initiate actions just from your existing platform that you have. There's also some cons to it as well. Oftentimes, whenever you do this integration, if you've got any smart devices in there, those come across as entities into the Home Assistant platform and will make it very noisy. You'll end up having a lot more entities, not sure which ones you want to go communicate with. And so I caution people on doing this right out of the gate. And if you do, limit it to just being able to look at the voice, not integrate all of the different components to it. But it is nice in order to be able to have that and say, the family's already used to saying, Alexa, turn on the lights or something like that, and have that actually kick off a whole sequence of events on the back end of Home Assistant and be able to take care of a lot more things there. Other thing of note here is Home Assistant over the past, I'd say year and a half, has a massive push to not be as reliant on the other voice assistants that are out there, Apple's or Google's or the Alexas, and started to integrate some of this on their own inside of the platform. It does require some hardware, some microphones and stuff like that that you'd have to get with it. But it is something that I think is moving forward at a pretty good pace and something worth exploring whenever you go down your journey with this. So the primary use case that got me started with being able to use Home Assistant was cameras. And I didn't like the app. I had an evolution of being able to use some home cameras. I didn't like the Blink app that I got. That's what I started with initially and decided I want to figure out a way to be able to have more of a mission control look to it and be able to switch between cameras relatively quickly and save videos off to a NAS or something like that where I can go back and review them. I like recording wildlife and out at our land. I put several of these around and was able to catch some interesting animals going on. Uh, going around the land looking for food, looking for whatever. And so I wanted a way to be able to index those and record them and be able to look rapidly whenever I needed to. So that's what got me started on this. And I started digging into mechanisms in order to be able to do it. And Home Assistant kind of fit the bill in a number of ways. Over time, I ended up replacing some of those cameras with Arlo cameras. And so again, another app I wanted a way to be able to mesh it all together. And then as time progressed, I ended up getting rid of some of the Arlos. The battery life on those wasn't quite as good. So I landed over on Eufy, which is, right, not necessarily cheap Chinese crap, but more expensive Chinese crap. In any case, worried about where that data is going and everything like that. Doing the integrations here gives you a lot more flexibility again to be able to control that from going to the cloud. You can save it all locally. Don't have to worry about a third party snooping on any of our pictures or anything like that that we may have. So, in any case, this is an example of one that had put together a while back. Takes a look at a number of different places around our house here, as well as a remote, our land that we have, so I can look at animals out there. But a nice way to be able to have kind of single pane of glass. You can snooze something if the wind's blowing and you don't have the exclusion area set properly. You can snooze it from recording for a while. You can communicate with most of these cameras and be able to talk or listen in. If somebody's at a place and you want to get their attention, hey, don't forget to go grab something or whatever. But gave me the ability to basically easily have kind of that mission control view that I always look for whenever I want to integrate stuff together there. So does support Frigate and RTSP. There's a couple different protocols in there for streaming and such, but you get a lot of capabilities in order to be able to put something like this together and have customized actions on each one of these little cameras themselves. So. Uh, the next one was presence detection. This is something that I've only, quite honestly, got into recently. We've got other people that we work with and other people at Fulcrum who've chased this to the nth degree, but this is traditionally what you think of anything. You can do standard scheduling stuff. At 10 o'clock at night, turn on my front porch light. Well, it gets a lot more efficient and a lot more interesting if you can do that based on whether or not you're at home, right? Or if you have other variables that you're looking at. But the idea behind it for us was an efficiency thing. If nobody was in our shop, that was one of the first ones that we did. Go ahead and turn off the mini split out there so I'm not wasting electricity, and go ahead and turn off the lights. Somebody walks back in, you can have it motion detect based on a camera, seeing someone or something like that, and doing the same thing and turning it back on or whatever if they want to go back up there. But ultimately, you get a lot more flexibility the more granular you can get with some of the presence detection stuff. This is an example of one that I'd set up. This is just my phone and my iPad. And we'll show where my location is, shows battery life on it, but kind of, again, one place to go to be able to do this. I know that they just recently opened up the API in order to be able to find my on this as well. So you could do find my phone straight from a button down here if you wanted to, which I'd like to set up for my wife who loses her phone all the time. The out of the box kind of easy button on these are the Wi-Fi and GPS signals that you're going to get. Bluetooth is another one. You can have some connectivity based on if it sees your Bluetooth address or whatever, and then the Home Assistant app itself. Last year, we had an ESP Home session in which they ended up having a sensor. You can use those all day, every day. They integrate really, really nicely. These are probably some more advanced ways to go about doing presence detection. The facial recognition is really interesting. I have not got into that, but I have a customer friend who has gone down that rabbit hole and been able to say, okay, they prefer X, so they'll be able to, set the music or tone or lights or whatever, however that person is in that room, which is pretty interesting as well. Next one was around energy monitoring. This again, what had me start chasing this was we actually had a water leak, and so I ended up wanting the ability to go in and figure out where that was when it was happening. I wasn't 100% it was a water leak, but I ended up utilizing the SDR, the software defined radio that we got. I think that was 2 years ago, and those you can basically run some programs that go and listen for the signals that are given out by your water meter whenever they come drive by. You can see your own usage, but you can also see everybody up and down the street because there's no security on that. In any case, I wanted the ability to go in and look and see, is this, something that was a leak, or is it because I've got four boys and they like taking long showers all the time, but our water bill being 400 bucks a month or whatever, it was time to go chase this in one form or fashion. So, in any case, this was the dashboard ended up coming up with, and was able to show a bunch of the data that's actually on that water meter and that gets beaconed out to the city. But we're able to pull that in and graph it and do some interesting stuff there to look at it based over time. Couldn't obviously do any of this with Alexa or Google or any of those other platforms. This is something fairly unique to being able to do inside a Home Assistant and using the MQTT as well. Out of the box, they now have an energy dashboard. You do need some sort of sensor in order to be able to do this, or API if you've got a utility company that allows that. I ended up getting this Sense device. You can put it basically in your breaker box, and it will sense how much electricity you're using. It tries to detect and has some smarts to it to try and figure out what types of devices you actually have on the network. I don't trust that very well, and so I ended up turning all those capabilities off on mine. But it is interesting to be able to take a look at it throughout the day and see, oh yeah, it's a hot day, and um, be able to correlate your AC going on and off several times a day versus the temperature outside and how that ends up lining up. Security and alerts, this is something that whenever we had a break-in at our land a couple years ago, and one of the things that I felt like I hadn't done a very good job of was being able to look at and respond to stuff real time with it. And so one of the strengths of Home Assistant is being able to immediately take action whenever it sees X, Y, or Z, and whether that's a notification or setting off alarm, turning on a light, you can do a lot of interesting stuff with that as well. And so it's not just a passive way of monitoring with the cameras, but you can do something proactive to try and scare an intruder off or something like that, take action a lot quicker. All right, so let's talk a little bit about automation. Automation is something that is a key component of Home Assistant. Whenever you want to build an automation, you can do it a couple different ways. You can do it basically with some YAML, but we typically want to start out using the wizard, and it's going to prompt you with a trigger, condition, and action. Um, that can be anything from like I said, presence detection, see if you're there, a particular event on another device, the state of it, the time, you can put it on a schedule, whatever the case may be there. And then from that, you can turn around, and a lot of the integrations have the ability to go in and uh, lost my train of thought there. What was this? Um, to go in and call APIs, do something on a particular another device or entity, and then from that call another service and keep the ball rolling on this. And then you can have definite a lot of interesting logic states with this as well, as far as if then or go to statements that you may be used to in traditional programming, but you can do all of that inside of Home Assistant with a nice little GUI. And then if you want to get a lot more complex with it, you can definitely dig a lot further there. So a couple examples on this. Utilizing the movie night, right? We want to turn the lights down low. We want to spin up Netflix or Plex or whatever the case may be on that. Um, I like doing ones morning and night routines. So being able to turn on the coffee pot is one. You got to get an old school coffee pot if you want to be able to have one that actually utilizes the smart plug on it. But you can utilize that, turn on and off lights, turn on and off alarms on places that we may not be for the night or something. But you can do a lot of interesting things with the scene and script capability there that builds on all the automation stuff that I described earlier. Um, Couple examples of dashboards here. I know yesterday we ended up talking about some DNS syncing, Pi-hole stuff. Definite integration with that. You can track a lot of the statistics around different devices in your house or different programs, whatever the case may be. I track stocks on mine, be able to have that all in one place and look at different things there in correlation with a number of other things. And then there's some examples here on this other one where it's everything from media to, room, lights, temperature, the whole nine yards. You can, like I said, get that mission control view in your environment. All these things can be clickable. You can turn them on, off. Oftentimes, you can get very granular on the detail that you can get off of a particular device, much more so than you would out of the app or something like that. So, one example of this is we have chickens, which we're going to do a chicken talk here in a minute, but being able to use the temperature sensor on the camera itself, exposing that to Home Assistant, and then being able to determine, do we need to turn on the heat lamp in there in order to be able to make sure they don't freeze. So there's a lot of interesting use cases there. You can have these up on the dashboards. You can get a visual snapshot of where you are with them, if it's on, off, or whatever the case may be, as well as being able to do control on that there. Um, Whenever you go and want to customize these dashboards, like I said, it's YAML under the covers. I got an example of some of that here in a minute, but it's typically pretty straightforward inside of Home Assistant. So the the two ways that you go about doing this, one, you can do it by card, which is shown here, where you can go and say, hey, I want a toggle card or a gauge or something like that, a camera, whatever the case may be. And then from that, you go in and you pick the entity itself that you want to be controlling or have visibility on. The other way of doing it is by the entity. And so you'll go down to the camera and then you have to pick which part of the camera that you actually want, which sensors on the camera that you want. And then you can go and it'll suggest one out of the gate here, or you can pick a different card and say, no, I want it to look different or act different here or something. So in any case, like I said, cameras in particular, they have a number of different sensors on them oftentimes, light sensors, they got the night vision thing, they may have a microphone, but you can go in and tweak, integrate with each one of those in a separate fashion. And so you could utilize it for one device for many different purposes a lot of times, but being able to put all that on a single dashboard so you can visually go through it is kind of one of the core tenets of what makes Home Assistant cool there. This is an example of one of the configuration files. Like I said, it's YAML. You don't have to put your passwords in here. There's a separate file, and you can do inclusions as well to other files in order to be able to keep it a little bit more organized. If you want, all of your um, smart microphones, smart home devices in a separate thing and be able to visualize those there and all your scripts in, say, another configuration file. It gives you the granular ability to go in and do that as well. But 99% of the integrations out there are going to be through a wizard. And oftentimes you'll walk through that. It'll give you some drop downs that you may want in order to be able to make decisions on what options you want on or off. But know that you can always come back to this and have the ability to dive a little bit deeper where necessary and tweak it behind the scenes. A couple of add-ons that I like around this. Grafana is really interesting. Frigate I've used. One of the challenges oftentimes whenever you're going cross-platform with your cameras is being able to consistently pull all of the videos back. Frigate does that out of the box, which is kind of nice. They recently added the ability to have some AI detections in there, so you can say, oh, this is an animal or a person or a vehicle. They've got some models in there that you can tweak on that as well. But out of the box, this is one of the ones that is listed on the integration there, runs in its own separate container. You got to do a little bit of setup on this, but is really helpful if you're into the camera stuff and being able to pull it all into one place like I like. The other one here of note is the Home Assistant Community Store. Getting this set up if you don't find a particular integration or something like that, it doesn't take very long to get this rolling. It's pretty straightforward on once you get it in there. It will basically point to the GitHub repo of whatever integration you're working with. So it'll constantly stay up to date and give you the ability to go in there and kind of update as need be easily there. A couple things that you want to watch out for out of the gate. One, oftentimes we get eager to try out everything on this. I have several dashboards that are kind of in progress dashboards where I'm looking at different integrations or whatever, but over time you may end up retiring a particular device. You want to go in there and clean that up. The other thing is too many automations. I think everybody suffers from this is you do one and it's like, oh, wow, this is really cool. Now I need to do it over and over. And it ends up adding a lot of complexity sometimes where it may not be necessary. So I like to start small, make sure it works, look at all the logs, and then go back and tweak it after I've kind of taken the temperature of the family if it's one that affects them as well. And then the last thing, there's no excuse for this because there is a really good plugin that will actually utilize your Google Drive for it, but poor discipline on your backups. And this is something that you'll want to make sure you're doing on a fairly regular basis. There's not any version control built into the tool itself, so it's handy to be able to have this and be able to go back where you need to. And like I said, it's pretty straightforward how to go about doing it once you get it up and going. This should be automated and easy button there. Oop. Last thing, close to the last thing. Um, so a couple security considerations. They've come a long way over the last couple of years on addressing some of this, which I think is pretty important. Right out of the gate, enable multi-factor authentication. Whenever you go through the wizard, it's just going to ask you for username and password of the admin. You can create accounts for other people as well, but turn on multi-factor authentication. It'll use like Google Auth or Microsoft Auth app on your phone. Nice and handy there. People will provide an extra layer of security there. Second one, while you may be tempted to expose this to the internet, do not do that. As a matter of fact, I think earlier this week there were a couple of exploits that were found in some hackathon over in Europe. And so make sure that you're utilizing VPN. I personally use Tailscale there. I have used Nabu Casa, that is the paid for version. Um, it's easy button as well, works really well with the app. And you're given to a good cause, right? You're helping support Home Assistant themselves. Backups, like I said, it's ideal if they're encrypted. That's easy to do with the Google Drive backup app there. It's just a checkbox, so you're good to go there. One of the things that you're going to find um, is you're going to be updating a lot. Pretty much every time I log in, there's going to be some update to some package or some component on Home Assistant. So there's three primary components that make up the base platform, the core, the supervisor, and the actual app itself. Those will oftentimes have updates with them, but you're also going to find your integrations will as well. And so you always want to check um, in the hack store, there is basically a little red circle with a number whenever you log in down at the bottom by settings, I want to say, that will indicate that you need to do some patching or whatever. You click on that and run through the process on it and just keep it up to date. And then the last thing there is check the logs. There's a ton of information in here. Whenever there's a misconfiguration or somebody's knocking on the door, whatever the case may be on that, you want to be able to go back and look at those. There are several built-in like companion apps that you can utilize in order to make this really easy. That allow searching and stuff like that in the logs, just right there from the primary console itself. Last thing here, the resources out there. So Home Assistant IO, that's the website for it. That's where you want to get started. The Hacks XYZ is going to be the Home Assistant community store, and then ESP Home. This is where the component was from last year, the sensors that we had sent out that Tom and I think it was Mike ended up doing the presentation on last year. So if you want to go dig into that and how to build one of those and set it up and everything, that would be kind of a place to start as well. And then you can turn around and do your integration here with Home Assistant. All right. Do we have any questions? I can't see questions if we do. All right, there they are. Okay, so sort of compatibility checker where we can see if our existing devices would work okay with this. Yes, Colin, there is. If you go onto two places. So if you go onto the Home Assistant primary website, um, there is an integration page and you can search for it there. That's typically the place to start because that's going to be built in easy. It'll have all the wizards and up to their standards and such. The second place is that second link is the hacks. And on there, I'm trying to remember if they have a searchable thing. I'm pretty sure that they do on the website. I know that they definitely do once you integrate it with Home Assistant itself. It'll be in the GUI there, and you can go search for, this Casa or whatever, the TP link, whatever device you may have there. Home Assistant tie into AI platforms like N8N for further customization. Roy, yes. This has been something I have not personally played with a whole lot, but I know in the latest versions that they've added some capabilities around this in order to be able to do more customization stuff, as well as I know that there is a project or a dev branch that is utilizing LLMs as well. So gives you a couple different angles to be able to go chase that. Does making your house smart home automation capability increase the price of it? Yes, absolutely. You will make big, big monies doing that. Any other questions? All right. Going once, going twice, sold. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all attending today.